sorry, my camera stopped. Okay, so I was saying that, you know, to upload the file, remember we had pressed the icon and then the K appeared. One of the things I want to direct your attention is here. You see the units? This is going to be your guide telling you which size frame that this embroidery machine is taking for this size file. So as you can see, you see one here that's not highlighted, then you have your 4x4 hoop, then you have your 5x7 hoop. Okay, so now that smaller hoop is going to be a 2x2 frame. Okay, now this machine does take a 2x2 frame, but not this embroidery file. So even if you wanted to use a smaller frame, okay, it won't accept it because this embroidery file is too large. So this machine is actually guiding you in what proper tools to use and what proper embroidery frame to use, okay? Okay, and here right there you see the MA poly. Now sometimes this machine will tell you what embroidery thread to use, but it's telling you really what kind of brand to use. You can actually change that to time. You can actually change that to different settings. For the most part, we'll go over that. I don't ever really pay attention to that because I have my own preference of thread and brand that I like to use. Also, the color check. If you press the color check, it's going to tell you the arrows, you know, at what point are you going to change your color, okay? So for the most part, you're going to have 3 color changes. If you notice that it has 1 of 3. If you press the next one, 2 of 3. Press the next one, 3 of 3. So automatically it's telling you, and it shows you at what point the embroidery machine is going to be when that next color change. So let me just go back to it. So the first one is going to give you a thin line, and that's usually your trace out line, and we'll go over that later. Your second line is going to be your tack down line that's going to tack your fabric to another piece of fabric. And then your third line, which is going to be this one, is going to actually embroider, okay? So there's 3 parts to this embroidering this embroidery file. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to move on to explaining the next icon. The next icon, it looks like the frame, and once again it's going to prompt you to direct your attention to the embroidery frame, and it's like your reset positioning of your embroidery frame. Okay, so if the frame was actually up there, it would have just simply moved it. Okay, so if you wanted to move your frame back, all you would have to do is just pretty much reset it. Okay, so let's direct our attention to the lower area of this menu, the lowest row. If you see that embroidery frame, that's also going to be your reset positioning of your frame. So let me just pull the machine back, the camera back, so you can direct your attention to both. Okay, so you're going to watch the embroidery unit part, and you're going to watch what happens once I press the embroidery icon. So it just changes it, and it either moves it forward or backwards, okay, either one of those buttons there. Okay, now if we direct our attention to the next icon, and it looks like a sheet of paper with a list on it, this is going to be your information that's built inside of your computer. Now remember when we saw that it had that MA poly? Okay, now let's say that you really didn't care what brand to use, so you didn't want to have that displayed. You can really choose what you want to have displayed by simply pressing these arrows, okay? And it's going to give you brands that you could have displayed. There's Sulky brand, there's Madeira, there's Robeson Anton. But once again, let's say that you didn't care altogether what brands and you didn't really want to focus on that. You would press the top arrow, and it's going to ask you to name the color. So let's say, for example, you had your own color, you had your own brand. For example, you didn't use any of those brands that it showed you. You can then begin to just enter the color there, or the brand, or even the number. Some of them don't even have colors. It's just, you know, listed by the number. Let's say, again, you didn't care about that. you can press it. Now, I generally like to see the time. I want to know how long it's going to take me to embroider something. So ideally, on all of the machines that I have, that is what display. When you get this machine, you can display whatever you want, but for the most part, it is very important for me to know how long something is going to take me to do. So I am going to leave that in the time mode, and I'm just going to go back, and I'm going to press that paper that looks like a list again. And also what I wanted to show you was other things that it can do. Now, it's also going to show you where your embroidery tension is set. If it's too tight, if it's too low. The lower the embroidery tension, the looser it is. The higher the number, the tighter it is. So for the most part, we like a low number so it doesn't have to be too tight because it can affect your embroidery. This embroidery machine have 2 speeds. If you look at this, the lowest, the last line here, the third line here, it says maximum speed, which is 650 stitches per minute, or the slowest speed is 350 stitches per minute. So I'm just going to switch it to 650 stitches per minute, and that's it. If you wanted to slow your machine down, obviously you would just simply press 350, and that would be the end of that. So that's that part of it. And then we have this. Now you see that looks like a little embroidery machine with a question mark, okay? That's where your built-in tutorials come in, and this is why this machine is absolutely awesome. It's so awesome as a beginner's machine, because if you get stuck and you don't want to watch a CD, you don't want to look it up on the internet, you don't want to read a manual book, this has a built-in tutorial. So for example, if you want to know how to wind your bobbin, you would just press that, and it's going to show you, and it's going to show you in an animated tutorial way that it's going to have 15 sets, okay? So that's the first part of 15. So it's telling you, take it and put it down, okay? And then if I press the arrow, it goes to the next. It's going to tell me to snap it over, right? And then if I go to the next one, it's going to tell me to lift the spool pin up and slide the thread on, okay? And if I go to the next, it's going to tell me to place the thread cap onto the thread. And that is so it doesn't fall off, right? And then if I go to the next, it's going to show me the direction that I am pulling the thread, okay? And then if I go to the next, it's going to tell me the steps. I'm going to place it through the tension guide. And then I'm at step number 7 of 15. It's showing me how to wrap it. And I'm going to show you all of this, but once again, if you don't want to watch this video or you don't have time, it is here in this machine. That's why I love this so much. And then number 8, tells you the next step, where to cut it off at. The next step tells you what button to press. The next step tells you what's going to be happening. The machine is going to start winding the bobbin thread. The next step, stop the machine after it's filled. The next step, cut the thread off. The next step, disengage or deactivate the bobbin. The next step, take it off. The next step, you are done refilling your bobbin. So that's for that. If we go back to the menu, it has that for all of the steps here. So if you wanted to do the same thing and you just wanted to focus on how to, let's say, replace the thread and so forth, I'm sorry, not the thread, the needle, again, it's going to go through each step, and it's going to have an animated way for you to learn how to operate your machine so you are not stuck. And it goes through those stages in regards to the unit, how to attach the embroidery hoops, and so forth. So once again, this is a wonderful machine, and the next step, I'm going to actually load the bobbin and follow the same thing that you already saw in the animated series. Okay, so we are almost there for the machine embroidery part. I just have to go over a few more steps. You've already seen the animated tutorial on how to load the bobbin. I have 3 colors that I'm going to be using for this project, and I've already preloaded 2 bobbins. I have one that needs to be loaded, and I'm going to use that clear plastic or that acrylic bobbin that I had talked about earlier. And then this is the fabric that I'm going to be using for the project. So you'll notice that in loading the bobbin, I am going to follow the steps precisely without missing, which means that if you have this machine and you are stuck or you're unsure, all you have to do is simply go into your embroidery machine and the tutorial is right there. Almost as if I'm right there, or a person who is really into embroidery and they know embroidery well is right there. It's right there. They did it all for you. So this is an excellent machine to start with, and there is nothing to be intimidated by. Let's get started. Okay, before we get started, let's go over the supplies that we're going to need here to refill the bobbin case. I have my thread, my bobbin case, a pair of scissors, and my thread cap. Okay, so I switched the bobbin case to a metal case because I really want you to see what I'm talking about here. Okay, so the cases are going to have a notch on it, and you want to pair that notch up with the pin. Okay, so this has a little pin here. It's almost like a guide, but it's a pin. So you just align it up together, and then you snap the bobbin in place, okay? Now I'm going to bring the thread around. So remember, it came around, it went through number 1, which is right here. Then it's going to go up and over number 2, and then it points in that direction. So I'm going to bring the thread over here. And then I'm going to grab the camera so you can see the direction. I'm just going to place it in the direction, but I'm going to bring it a little bit closer so you can see exactly what's happening here. And bear with me because I am holding the camera, and I'm going to attempt to try to load this for you. So it's coming through number 2, and if you can direct your attention over here, you will see that there's actually a diagram that tells you what it should look like. So even if you don't go into the tutorial, you still have pictures on this thing that can show you exactly what you are supposed to be doing. Okay, so let's direct our attention back here to the tension guide, and we're going to make it exactly the way it shows on the diagram. It says to go through here, then it says to bring it around here, like so, and then to bring it around. And now we're going to bring it over to where the bobbin case is. Okay, so I'm just going to pull the thread over to the bobbin, and I'm just going to wrap it around a couple of times. And then it says to cut it, right? There is a little blade. Let me just see if I could get there closer for you. Yeah. Okay, so there's a little blade right here that you're just going to take the thread and you're just going to slide it over into that little slot there. And I'm trying not to move the camera too much, but I am right-handed and I'm holding the camera with my right hand. Okay, so we're just going to slide it through, and we're just going to pull it. And once you pull it, you'll see that that blade is going to cut that thread. Okay, so I'm going to press the button. And if you direct your attention, you see the thread loading the bobbin. All on its own. Just like the tutorial says, just like the pictures show, is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's almost filled, so you'll see it starting to slow down, and it stops. So now I just have to stop it and then go back over here, disengage it, just like the film showed. Take a pair of scissors, cut it, lift it up, and now my bobbin is loaded. Here's where your bobbin is going to be loaded. This is your bobbin cavity. Okay, so there's a little notch here, and again, Brother machines generally have pictures or indentations showing you exactly what to do. But again, this particular machine has a built-in tutorial. So all you have to do is just pull the notch down, and you'll see that little door, or that lid rather, lift it up, and it shows you the direction that this bobbin is supposed to be winded in. So we're going to follow that picture exactly the way it is. All right, so let's see if I can do this without bumping the camera, and I can show you exactly the way you load the bobbin. Okay, so we're just going to drop it in there, like so, and then we're going to bring it around. You see, I'm sliding it through that little slot there, and then bringing it on that little track, bringing it around. And then there's a blade right there at the end of that little track that's going to cut the thread. And then I'm just going to put the lid back on, and your bobbin is loaded. To thread this machine, you want to take it from this area where it was at for on the tension guide to load the bobbin. And I'm just going to take the whole thing off so you can see the area, and I'm hoping that I'm not shaking too much, but I pushed the thread up against the spool pin, and the thread cap is still in place, and I'm just going to take it. Now we're not following the two going that way, because that way was the area where we loaded the bobbin. We're going to go this way now. Okay, so I'm just going to take the thread and follow number 1, and we're going to go up, down, and up, and then once again we're going to go this way and down. And you'll notice that it does have these numbers, okay, so you can follow it. Let me just see if I can get in there a little closer or clearer for you. I'm sorry if the camera is shaking so much. It's not on the tripod because I really need to get close. Okay, so we're at number 3. And now I'm just going to loop it around, and I'm going to go up. And now we're going over number 4. And now I'm going down to number 5. And I really need to zoom in on number 6. So let's see if I could get a close shot of that. Let's see. Yeah, you see that number 6? Number 6 is going to be right here. Okay, and I'm going to show you what you are aiming at. Okay, so you see it's at number 6. Now, I'm going to try to do as best as I can without having my fingers in the way, but ideally, there's a little slot here, and that's where we are going to place the thread through. Your machine will not work properly if you skip this step, so don't pull it through number 5 and just put it into the needle, because it will not work. So, to do that, you're just going to take your thread and slide it through this slot and pull it over to the left, and now you are ready to thread the needle. Now the next step, which is the automatic needle threader, which is number 7, it shows you the direction that you can take the thread. However, that is optional, because once you are at number 6 and you successfully complete number 6, you do not need the machine to thread your embroidery machine. You can now just place it through the needle eye, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. If you would like to learn how to use the needle threader, then all you have to do is go into your tutorial, and it's right there for you. So I'm going to be embroidering my name, or K, onto an apron for me. But before I do that, we're going to grab that hoop. Remember, this is your 5x7 hoop. We're also going to grab the grid. And we're going to use something called stabilizer. Excuse me. This is a paper that will go on the back of the apron, and it will hold the stitches in place onto the fabric. And to apply that, we're going to use some spray adhesive. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take both parts of the embroidery hoop, okay? So this is the back part of the embroidery hoop, and this is the front part of the embroidery hoop. Let's also look at what the embroidery hoop is made of. Okay, so these two notches is what's going to click onto the embroidery machine, and I'm going to take it over to the embroidery machine so you can see how it clicks on. But remember, whatever you don't see here, it is built inside of your machine. You do have a tutorial. So basically, what's going to happen now is I'm going to cut a piece of stabilizer off, spray some adhesive onto it, attach it to the fabric, and then I'm going to attach it to the hoop.